Greetings. My name is Michael Miller, and I got a message that distracted me from continuing. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. Of course, coming from the point of view of what Pilates is, of MMP. One brand, one way of looking at Pilates, and there's millions, really. Almost all of them based on a continuation of tradition and word of mouth and generation to generation, which is the history of Pilates. "19 years ago, in the year 2000, I put out a self-published book. I'm not bragging about it, but it's pointing to, yes, you can look at Pilates and see something there in and of itself." Blah, blah. Last broadcast, I was really focused on sharing how much I'm realizing that this broadcast is for not only you, my student. The assumption of student is the air that I'm trying to construct around this broadcast. And then more than student now, being a presenter. And I left out that title in my intro: Michael Miller Pilates Licensed Affiliates, Michael Miller Pilates Licensed Presenters, and then the Core New Core and my patrons and people interested in Pilates. I don't think I pay enough attention to the audience that it seems I'm carrying along to some extent, and to address you, them, more than trying to address everyone. Okay? Like, know your audience. So, it's amazing I'm thinking of a commercial now on TV where a guy is in front of an audience, probably projecting from his phone to a big screen, and he keeps getting messages about football, I think, from someone. And birthdays are coming. So I want to, number one, the MMP backstroke. Okay, the backstroke as in the exercise on the reformer on the long box. Okay, so that's sort of what it is and where it happens. And then in terms of looking at any exercise, it's like, where did this come from and where is it going? Okay, it's one way to look at things. And so the backstroke comes from, in this point of view, coordination. So where you're on the reformer and you're flat on your back and you're doing coordination, you're paying attention to the midline and then staying in plane, going in and out, one plane or the other, right? So core new tension is flat on your back on the carriage. Expressing the midline and a plane that moves away from midline. But what comes on in the backstroke is you're up on the low box, so you're further away from center, which means more loading, right? And so you're heavier in space, supposedly, or maybe not literally, but You've at least moved away and you're on this little pedestal, and that's not the grounding center that you were on. Okay? But then what happens with the movement of the arms? Instead of in plane, right, it's the legs in plane in coordination, and the arms as well, right? But instead of planes in the backstroke, it's all rotation. When you do the backstroke, I would say classically, historically, you come around and arms and legs are reaching out, and then both the arms and the legs return to the body at the same time. Which is different than the coordination, where the knees come in first, and then the bend at the elbows happens. If you're paying attention to such things, right? The sequence of the order of things and the way you control the sequence into them and out of them. I really lean into the strength of coordination and drawing knees in, even in backstroke. Knees coming first before the arms come in. And I know that's not the difficulty of the expression of doing it simultaneously, but I think it takes me deeper into my grip at the hips. So, if the backstroke on the reformer, long box, comes from coordination, where is it going to? Well, the very next exercise on the long box after backstroke is teaser. And in teaser, you're up on your hips, and only your hips are a contact point. So in backstroke, hips and shoulders are anchored. You may want to evolve all the way out into doing a backstroke where there is no anchor at the shoulders. But fundamentally, by position and where you're coming from in your body, in MMP, the hips and the shoulders are anchored, and then teaser releases the anchor in the shoulders where you come up just on one contact point instead of being on two. More weight, further away from center, fewer contact points. Changes in tempo, changes in tension. Are progressive ways of making an exercise more difficult. And going in the opposite direction would be ways of making an exercise easier from the outside in, which you may not be too keen on. So we've talked about, so the backstroke, just as an exercise. What is it? You're on your back, hips and shoulders are anchored. Arms and legs go up, arms and legs go out, arms and legs come together, and we've already discussed the alternatives on how the arms and legs bend back to position. But my number 3 on this list of talking about the MMP backstroke is the setup. Because the setup of the equipment hugely influences to either facilitate or get in the way of, impede the performance of the effort. In the backstroke, if you have to get into the right position in your body where you're creased at sternum, like you would learn at hundreds, right? To be in that position, if you have to put yourself in tension to be in that position, you're already in tension across your shoulders, so there's no way you can be eccentric coming from your hips. And so ideally, in the position of your body, you're in a good position, in close to center, creased at sternum, without being in tension. And so setup really influences that exercise. And before I go on, in the teaser to come, where the body is and where you hit tension and where you accomplish coming up in your teaser. So in the MMP setup, from being in close without being in tension, you go up like a tabletop without being in tension. You're up against it, but you're not in it. No slack, no tension. Your arms come wide, maintaining that status of no slack and no tension. And that's the end of an exhale. And it's the inhale that comes and initiates from the hips and takes the arms and legs out into the reach. It's the inhale that takes you away from center. This is an MMP, right? So there's all kinds of ways to breathe. You can hold your breath, but you can judge for yourself what works better, and have your own reasons for why you like to do it, for what you want to work. Number 4 on this is about the breathing. Just on backstroke, number 4. It's the breathing that you can make on the exhale as your arms go wide. Exhale to prepare. And then it's in that anticipation of and waiting for the inhale bus, the need to breathe in when you need air, that draws you into the effort. Which takes me to number 2, why inhale moving away from center? Because in the inhale, the inflation of your lungs contributes to the uniform engagement of your musculature. You're more uniformly engaged at the peak of your inhale than you are at the peak of your exhale. Think of a basketball that's not inflated, and you throw it down and it just goes thud. There's no responsiveness in it. So the lungs aren't inflated. There's no tension in the lungs. The musculature that's causing the lungs to breathe. See what I'm saying? And without that tension of the inhalation, without the engagement of the whole rib cage, right? All the muscles you want to name, and especially the TVA connecting you lower. You inhale because it more efficiently distributes your load, so you're lighter in space. Find comfort in the routine is the title, and that means to the extent you have the routine that you're actually doing Pilates, to where you say, yes, well, I have a routine with it, right? To whatever extent there is a repeated effort at doing it, that it's a quality of the routine and it's a quality of the effort you make in it that gives you the results that we talked about yesterday that you're after. Results matter. You can deliver a Pilates body faster than anybody around, insofar as knowing what it takes to get one, which means a uniform engagement. And to get uniform engagement, in Pilates, there's a lot of interaction with springs to bring you into the ability to make the spring tension internal on your own. And you do that through quarter tension. So in my conclusion, it's know what you know, and it's about tension. See, it's about understanding gravity as a uniform medium, and to the extent that we can create an effect in our body that's like fluorescence in that it's wholly distributed, right? The more uniformly we can engage our musculature, the lighter we are in space, because the more musculature we've got contributing to its support. The key thing, one of the key things, the backstroke is so special. See why it is what it is, and why it comes where it does in the mat, or in the reformer, right? Recognize patterns. Recognize further away from center, moving from planes to circles. And recognize there's being in tension before you even begin, so it's hopeless being eccentric because you're already engaged at an extremity. So position yourself in the equipment so that you're at ease in the beginning. And even on the inhale, your arms and legs go up, but they don't take on any more load or any tension from the equipment. The exhale takes the arms and legs open to what's controllable, and you're not in tension, but you're not out of it either. You're up against it. No slack, no tension. So that as your instinctual impulse arrives to inhale, and you attach that to the initiation of your movement, your muscular engagement is right up against the tension that you need to interact with. Not slack and then a wall of tension to get through. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Connect the dots. Evaluate points of view. And then add 2 and 2. Direct your thinking. Guys.